Today I'm going to show you what to do with your balcony garden over winter, and then I'm going to give you a balcony garden tour. Okay, so my welly boots are on, my garden is a mess, and I think now is the time I just need to get out there and fix it. So let's go. Now here in the UK this winter we've had a ton of mild weather, but just recently the temperatures have really dipped. Today is an odd day, for some reason the sun is out, so I feel like now is a good time to come out into the garden and show you some of my tips to help over winter. So in this collection of pots here, the vast majority of these plants are actually perennials. What I'm going to do is deadhead some of these and keep some of the seeds for next year, and just try and shape some of these up a little bit. There you go. Those are the oxeye daisies now. It's not picture perfect, but it will do. Now, as for the Nepeta, I am just going to hack it all the way back down to the base. Because this is diseased and there are still some whiteflies around here, I'm going to hack it back now. Normally I would probably have waited until spring. Because it's so diseased and because it's still harbouring these damn whiteflies that are pretty much dormant now because it's cold, it's better to just chop it and then throw it away so that next year it will get a fresh start. So what I have found is if we look down the bottom, there are already some new shoots. Now it's super rare that you will ever see me throw things away. I normally try to repurpose whatever I can, but this, if I was to leave this or distribute this as mulch on the garden, I'm just going to infect everything else. So this is going to go in the bin. Now I've chopped back the Nepeta, and this is the very first time that I've seen a snail up here. I've seen slugs, but not snails. Let's see if anyone's home. Wow, it's empty. It's the same story for these delphiniums, and of course the two containers were just next to each other. So I'm going to chop this back as well. Once again, I wouldn't normally do that, but because they are infected, I don't want any new growth to start happening in springtime and then these lovely beasts of mine waking up and then infecting the rest of my garden. So I'm going to chop them back now, and hopefully the plants will survive into next year. The only parts of my garden that I really should prune back during winter are my climbing roses and also my grapevine, both of which are on my arches. So let's go take a look and see what needs to be done. My roses, some of the stalks are green, this one's brown, so I'm pretty sure that's over with. But as you can see, there are so many brown leaves all the way up on these roses. Essentially, I didn't keep up with my watering and the maintenance. But as you can see, the plant is mostly alive, so what I'm going to do is chop back some of those leaves, prune them all back, and hopefully in spring it will re-go all over again. So I'm going to take off some of these along here as well, if I can reach them. I had to have a quick outfit change because let me tell you, it is freezing at the moment. You can probably see my breath. Sometimes it's inevitable that we have to move some of our containers around, but be really careful when you do, because sometimes you may just find that you've got one or two lodgers. Let me show you. In this container I've got some voluntary lettuce. Now I don't mind this, I'm going to harvest it, that's fine. But lifting up and moving, find a baby worm and also a baby slug. Now I'm doing a bit of sweeping and I really need to move that container from my path. So I'm going to move that container, but I'm also going to relocate some of these little critters. Oh, alright, calm down, calm down. Okay, off you go, in there. Now this side of the garden gets the least amount of sun. When it gets to around about 3 o'clock in winter, the sun will set over there. In summer, the sun sets over there. so it gets equal amounts of sun during summer. But through winter, because the sun sets there, it means that this half of the garden is normally slathered in sunshine on a sunny day. So that means I got to double think. If I've got some perennials that I know are going to be dormant through winter, it makes more sense for me to move those containers into the less sunny side of the garden, and then move anything that is still going on the left hand side of the garden over into the sunnier section. So that's what I'm going to do now. Just moved this container from the shady side of the garden, and this is actually a camellia. Don't ask why it's in this container. It's in the completely wrong container, but it just has been for the past couple of years. But interestingly, if you just take a look, it's November and she is looking like she wants to flower, like you do. So I'm going to put her in a bit more of a prominent position. Now the problem is that she is in a container with this geranium. Once again, I've had this geranium for a couple of years, but because it's been tucked away, I've not really seen it, and you can just see how badly ravaged this has been by aphids. Absolutely destroyed. What I'm going to do is tidy this up a bit, rescue it, cut it back if I need to, and then I'm going to put this in a prominent space on the sunny side of the garden. This was one of my Chelsea containers. It looked glorious, but now not so much. Once again, this is whitefly. You can probably see them, just little specks of white. So once again, I'm going to chop almost all of this back to the base, so that those whitefly have got nowhere to hide through winter. There you go, so I've chopped it all back, and then I took out any of the annuals that were in this container as well, so there's a bit of spare space. I know that next year I can reuse these parts of the container, or I could even put in some bulbs for spring on either side and let the two perennials in here do their thing, and as those bulbs are gone, I can then replace them with some annuals. But again, that's a conversation for me to have at a later date. I also tidied up the salvia, took care of some of the loose ends. Once again, this had some aphids on it, so I've chopped off anything that was looking a little bit worse for wear. As you can see, I've still got a couple more buds to come from this, so I'm going to get some additional flowers from this plant. I'm going to do some more deadheading with some of these containers as well. I'm going to get rid of some of these flower heads and try and tidy these up a little bit. Again, I'm not heavily pruning, I'm just going to be taking care of some of the spent flowers and some of the dying leaves. So I've just chopped it back to where I can see a little bit of new growth coming. Here there are flowers. That's another stem that's going to flower. There's one there and another behind. So it would be really tempting to give it a chop here, but in actual fact, if I did that, I'd be selling myself short. So I'm going to do some precision chopping to take off this stem with these two flower heads here, in order to leave the others behind. I'm gonna have to put the camera down whilst I do this, but I'll come back and show you how I get on. Now that that's out of the way, I had to make a couple of cuts, but you can see just how much new growth is here. There's at least 3 or 4 stems, so if I once again had made the cut down here, I would have lost all of those stems for flowers. Now this alocasia is probably going to die if I was to leave this out over winter. This is going to be one of those plants that I'm going to bring inside. Now if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I also have a black colocasia. This year I'm going to leave that one outside as it is in a container pond, and so it needs to be kept moist at all times. Without further ado, here is my winter balcony garden tour. Take a look at the rose arches now. It took quite some time and quite a few cuts and bruises, but eventually I've managed to clear out most of the browning leaves on these rose bushes. And much to my surprise, there were already plenty of brand new buds coming up on the rose bushes. Intertwined on the rose arches, I've got some black-eyed Susans. And yes, they are still flowering. Strangely enough, they come from one of these containers. They've climbed all the way up the trellis and then have migrated from the trellis over onto the arches. The fish pond is still looking super green, however, the fish have stopped feeding. In fact, they're spending most of the time at the bottom of the pond. In fact, if we get a little bit closer, you'll see that the pond is slightly frozen over. In this container, just underneath the pond, I had some alliums last year, but also some renegade potatoes. And by the looks of things, they have spread all throughout the garden. So at some point, I need to dig up these potatoes that have just volunteered themselves all around the garden. Believe it or not, those potatoes aren't the only fruit and veg that I still have in the garden. To see that, let's go further down. Just behind me here, I've got some broccoli. I've been collecting and harvesting the seeds and using them for microgreens indoors. Now, what people don't know is actually most brassicas are perennials. So further down the garden, I've got one that's got 2 stems. But or not, somehow, down this end of the garden, I still have plenty of food going. I have chilies, I still have beefsteak tomatoes, I've got kale and lots of volunteer lettuce and other goodies hiding in this garden. Let me know in the comments below if you've got some crazy things still growing in winter in your garden. My nasturtiums have been doing nothing for a good couple of months, and all of a sudden they have just exploded. But funnily enough, I don't actually know what colour these flowers are going to be. They are in a container that had plenty of broad beans in. I suspect that the nitrogen levels in that soil have caused my nasturtiums to be super leafy. Normally I would be upset, but right now they are such a great source of protein. I'll be adding these leaves into my salads all throughout Christmas. Down here I've got some Malabar spinach, and this should have died ages ago. In fact, it did nothing all summer and has only just woken up. The thing is that it doesn't like frost at all, so I'm not sure how long that this is going to go for. But I also have some peas, and they are almost ready to harvest. And speaking of harvesting, I have this giant cucumber. I don't know why I've been clinging on to it for so long, but yeah, that needs to come up, so that's probably going to take place in the next couple of weeks. That camellia is looking lovely, and the geranium got stripped back, but it's now in a nice prominent position. The delphiniums from earlier have been cut back, and hiding underneath that diseased nepeta, I have foxgloves and some salvias on the brink of return. The struggle bus area is struggling. My herb tower is looking absolutely dreadful. I have some mint that's still clinging on. Everything else I'm going to cut back in spring, but I still have some lettuce, and at some point during winter I need to repot my strawberry runners. If you didn't know, I won the Garden Media Guild's Social Media Communicator of the Year. I was completely lost for words when I won this award. I had to travel all the way down to London, to the Savoy Hotel. Um, there were so many gardening greats at the award show. Alan Titchmarsh, the team from Gardener's World, so many fantastic journalists, social media personalities. So for me to walk away with such a massive award like this, I don't even know what to say. Thank you to everyone who's been following me on my journey for the past couple of years, and I hope that my content has helped to inspire you to do something with your small space. Hopefully I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye! It's been an absolutely crazy year, and just wanted to reiterate thank you again so much for following me and supporting me and pushing me. Don't forget, you can also find me on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you again soon. Bye!